We are here, and yes, we are all still laughing at the Dallas Cowboys. It is time to get the NFC squad together.
You are talking ball with the NFC squad. From the Cowboys to the Packers, the Falcons to the 49ers, and everyone else around the NFC, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming weekend for hard-hitting NFC football with our harder-hitting takes. Buckle up, it's the NFC squad, and we have a seat for you. No hurt feelings allowed. Squad up, you're part of the NFC squad.
And welcome into this week's edition of your NFC squad. Second time we've gotten back to do this. I don't know how many times I'm going to count it, but right now I'm going to count it up to at least number 2. So sit back, grab your favorite beverage or snack, and join us as we have some good old-fashioned trash talk. We get you ready for another wild week across the NFC. It's already been a wild week across the NFC, and we're just getting this thing started. Today's NFC squad episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, and you can go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. We are going to go around the room here. We got Locked On Eagles host Louis DiBiase and Gino Camilleri coming through representing the program. James Jaro from Locked On Bucks, Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints, Aaron Freeman from Locked On Falcons, so almost the entire NFC South. And we've got Landon McCool bravely coming in here. Hopefully he brought the 47-piece that the Detroit Lions left in Dallas for him to today's episode, because he is, like James Jaro was in our first edition, Landon McCool is our big loser of the Week 6 matchups. And Landon, I want to start there, buddy. What? Let's just talk about the game. Let's just stick to between the lines right now. We'll get to the microphones and the phone calls and the threatening, the firings, and everything else. But right now, let's just stick between the lines. 47-9, brother. What happened when the Lions came to Dallas?
Well, first of all, that second part is what Jerry wants, right? He wants to get your eyes off what's happening between the lines and on him.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we knew going into the game that it was going to be an uphill climb for us on defense, right? Because we've had a lot of injuries, especially the defensive end position. The Lions come in off of a bye week, with one of the best offensive line, if not the best offensive line in football. And healthy too, finally, obviously coming off the bye week. So we knew that was going to be difficult. The hope, sweet hope. I remember you. The hope was that they would be able to do enough, either blitzing or to try to stop things on early downs and then get them into third downs and then blitz the heck out of them and hope that would stop things. The hope was that Dak Prescott and the offense would pick up the slack where need be and control the ball to keep the defense off the field. Guess what? None of those things happened. Not even one. And the Dallas Cowboys didn't even score a touchdown in that game at home and are now 0-3 at home with I'm pretty sure averaging 20 points a loss at home so far this season. So, that's what happened, is a very pathetic performance by one of the two football teams playing on the field.
Speaking of pathetic performances in the NFC East, Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints is here for his first time. So we're going to go ahead and kick it over to you, Ross. Thankfully, the Dallas Cowboys came through and did not make the Saints the biggest losers of the week. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New Orleans is known for its food, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers brought 51 herbs and spices of Cuban flavor to NOLA and laid it down on the New Orleans Saints. From your vision of that game, what's going on in New Orleans and the great Spencer Rattler experience?
Oh, it's fine. Everything's great, like it's fine. No, it's interesting. I thought that I was going to come in here and have to talk about the Saints as the biggest loser, because there has not been a team since the 1950s, 5-0, that forced 3 turnovers, scored 27 points, and had a punt return for a touchdown, and still lost by 24 points. Not a great start not a great, way for that game to end for the New Orleans Saints. They had something very similar against the Atlanta Falcons, very similar against the Philadelphia Eagles as well. It's where they kind of became this first team in 50 plus years to lose in some certain fashion. Not necessarily the company that you want to be in, keeping that company all by yourself if you're the New Orleans Saints. So things right now, not great. The New Orleans Saints are down. Let's see, 2 starting wide receivers. They're starting left guard. They're starting right guard. They're starting center, and they're starting quarterback. Their offensive weapon, Taysom Hill, who has been sort of the most reliable player on their offense in terms of holistic offensive performance, is dealing with a rib injury. And then their best player, Alvin Kamara, is dealing with a rib injury, a hip injury, and a hand injury. So, great.
Yeah. And Sean Payton's coming to town. So
yeah, Sean Payton karma is exactly what it is.
Sean Payton's going back through.
I hesitate to call it Sean Payton karma because remember, the Saints didn't get rid of Sean Payton. Sean Payton just left. And so it's
at least
not
he said goodbye, unlike Anthony Davis, though.
At least he thanked New Orleans, unlike AD. But I think the biggest thing here is when it comes to all that, like when you have a situation to where a division opponent shows up at your house and drops 51 points, and then you have to turn around 3 days later and play your former head coach, emotions are going to be kind of wild on Thursday night.
Yeah, but look, at least the New Orleans Saints didn't lose to a rival, because that would be much, much worse. As much as Sean Payton probably appreciates the city of New Orleans, Sean Tucker appreciates the city of New Orleans even more. James Jarko, Sean Tucker dropped 136 yards on just 14 carries. What's going on with the Bucs run game? Because I know Todd Bowles is talking about a 3-headed monster happening out there in Tampa, but I got some people who know I'm a Sun Devil coming at me saying, hey buddy, sorry about Rachaad White's luck. Good luck with your next Sun Devil, which I'm still claiming Jaden Daniels, even though he doesn't claim Arizona State. That's a whole other story. Anyway, James Jarko, Buccaneers 4-2. Some people thought they were dead in the water after they lost to Sean Payton for the 40th time in history, but they're suddenly back alive in the NFC South race.
Yeah, well, and Sean Tucker is kind of like that breath of fresh air, right? Like, we know what Rachaad White's capable of. We've seen flashes from Bucky Irving, but I, on Locked On Bucs, have deemed the fourth quarter of Buccaneers games Tucker time. Of those 136 yards, 107 came in the fourth quarter. 64 came on the Bucs' final drive over 6 carries. So when you have a guy with the burst as well as the power of Sean Tucker that can go against these worn out defenses in the fourth quarter and grind the clock out and really just eat up, what's remaining on the defensive side of the football. That's something that the Bucs really haven't had since playoff Lenny. So that was really nice to see. And, it was an up and down game for sure. And I'm, Ross, I know people inside of the dome there were super hyped in the second quarter because that was the one quarter that the Saints did play, the one quarter that the Bucs didn't play. But yeah, I don't know how Cohen's going to really navigate this. If I'm Liam Cohen, I'm treating the first half of the game the way I've always treated it. It's going to be Rachaad and Bucky. You might have some goal line situations where you're using Sean Tucker, but then it's in the second half where I'm sprinkling in Tucker in the third quarter, let him get a rhythm, get a feel for the game. Then in the fourth quarter, it's all Tucker. You might get 1 or 2 carries from Bucky, 1 or 2 from Rachaad, but I am just pounding that opposing defense with Sean Tucker nonstop late in games.
Yeah, look, I think you're on the right track there. Look, I'm really happy for Sean Tucker, but one game, given the history that he's already kind of had with the team, I don't think you're necessarily looking at this guy taking a lion's share of the snaps. Fortunately, Aaron Freeman, we'll stick in the NFC South here. The Atlanta Falcons were able to overcome the great Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers, led by first-year head coach Dave Canales. I mean, bro, like one sentence, dude. How do you feel about the Falcons beating the Panthers?
Huge win. We beat Andy Dalton for the first time in Falcons history. So,
absolutely. That's great Falcons analysis from Aaron Freeman on that game. That's all we need to talk about with anything involving the Carolina Panthers. Louis DiBiase, Gino Camilleri, the Eagles won, but they definitely lost, guys.
Doesn't feel like
I don't know which one wants to talk here, but a 4-point win over the Cleveland Browns has got to sting a little bit.
Louis, you got it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that Nick Sirianni changed during the bye week was his haircut. The guy's having a full-on Britney Spears moment, and I mean, the guy has the situational awareness of a rock. He's yelling at fans, and I know he brings his kids up during the press conferences, but to do that right after the game just feels like just the worst timing. The third and one play call in the second half, it doesn't feel like a win. I don't know, Gino, if you can agree with that, but I mean, Nick looks like he's absolutely losing it. I mean, the wheels are falling off.
He's the real life Billy Walsh from Entourage who cuts his hair and says, I'm an effing mess at one point in that show. And that's Nick Sirianni. He quite literally grabbed his wall razor, shaved his head off before arguably the most important game of the season. And if people didn't think he was a quote unquote rodeo clown beforehand, everybody's getting their licks off at him right now. But the craziest part about it is this isn't even the most off the block story in the NFC East right now. Let's go back to Jerry Jones. Can we go back to Vince McMahon of the NFL really quick?
Right,
Can we get there?
We are absolutely going to circle right back around.
He'd love
to
that.
The Dallas Cowboys. We warned Landon McCool before he came through here, and round of applause for Landon. He still showed up to take every bit of the heat that he is going to get coming up here on today's episode of NFC Squad. And we are doing this thanks to our great friends over at Arena. And for most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Luka, Ellie, or Patrick Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards, pun intended, and very much well intended. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop on cards, almost as much money to drop on maybe seeing Nick Sirianni curse you out after a big win over the Cleveland Browns. Thanks to slab packs, though, from arenaclub.com. Now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl and use the code LockedOnNFL. That's all one word. That's arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl. Code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. And we're also bringing this NFC Squad to you thanks to our friends at Game Time. And Game Time has a cool feature called Game Time Picks. Game Time Picks makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier, and sometimes helps you find new live events that maybe you wouldn't have found on your own. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the best incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Curated deals make it easier to find the best price on the greatest seats. My Game Time Picks right now in the DC area feature tickets to see Nick Sirianni visit the Washington Commanders. Can't wait. In December for $137. All-in pricing. You toggle on the all-in pricing on the app, and you'll get all your prices up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Get your game tickets, get your live event tickets, go to the Game Time app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. And welcome back into this week's version of NFL Squad. It is Landon McCool takes all the heat day here in our NFC episode. And Landon, if losing to the Detroit Lions, not because it's the Detroit Lions, but because of the way, of course, that loss happened. Of course, we all are sending our well wishes out to Aiden Hutchinson of the Detroit Lions, hoping that he gets to fully back to his NFL career when the time comes. But Landon, Jerry Jones, never one to not be entertaining. Just showing up to the NFL scouting combine is like just seeing how Jerry shows up to the scouting combine every year is just one of my favorite things. So he definitely draws a crowd, definitely draws a lot of attention. And now he's definitely calling, not directly, but hinting at calling for the jobs of radio hosts. For those who have not caught up with all the things going on in Jerry's world, let everybody know what the latest, greatest comings and goings are during the Dallas Cowboys bye week.
Sure. Yeah. So every week, Jerry has a call-in segment at 105.3 The Fan, which is the local flagship station for the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry doesn't own the station, but I'll just say that they probably wouldn't have a broadcast license if they weren't the official broadcast. Boo! Boo!
2 weeks in a row.
Aaron Rodgers White is what he is.
Everybody, please welcome Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers.
Listen, Mike Williams ran the wrong route, and
somehow Peter's going to blame David and get him fired, just like Aaron Rodgers.
Jerry's on the line.
Can we trade for? Can we trade
for? Get out of here.
Can we trade for Tony Wiggins on this show? What's the deal? Can we do that?
No. As I was saying before rudely interrupted, Jerry, I don't even want to finish my sentence. Jerry has a weekly segment on 105.3, and he called in and he definitely got some pushback. I mean, for valid, very good reasons. And listen, Jerry has been doing this on this station and a previous station for 20 years. Like I've heard this call, like, you know, almost weekly during the season for as long as I can remember. And this was without a doubt. I mean, think about all the things the Cowboys have seen in the last 20 years. Think about all the things. And this is the first time I've ever seen Jerry like this before. You know, he basically was took umbrage, as he would say, with the tone that the question asker was taking and pushed back. And, you know, there were things you could have done in this offseason that, you know, why didn't you kind of make any changes in the offseason to kind of, address these issues? And Jerry basically kind of whanned like, I, you know, have the Super Bowl, you know, and 30 years ago, and that's enough that you guys shouldn't be questioning me. And if you should be questioning me, you should be going with me to this owners meeting flight that I'm on. And basically he, you know, I mean, you can ask a couple of different people and they probably will all tell you different things. He either threatened the job of the question asker or threatened to replace who was asking him the questions on the station. And I brought up the other point earlier to say that, yes, Jerry Jones does not own this station, but if Jerry Jones wanted to get these guys, and I know these guys, if he wanted to get these guys, you know, off the air or off from questioning him or potentially fired, I don't think that would be difficult for him. So it seemed like a pretty realistic threat to me. It was pathetic. It was embarrassing as a Cowboys fan to watch. But at the same time, you know, after I heard it, after I kind of dealt with how I felt about it, I realized that I had fallen for the banana in the tailpipe again with Jerry Jones. And this was all designed by him. You know, this is what he does, is that when his team isn't doing what everyone thinks they should be doing, he distracts everybody in the national and the local media by getting on and talking about a glory hole or talking about, that any number of things that I've had to go on my podcast.
Is it a sushi glory hole? 12 can talk about burrito bets. Landon McCool can talk about Jerry Jones glory holes. Peter Bukowski, Locked On Packers. You know a thing or two about covering a guy who at least thinks he has the ability, if not has the proven ability.
I didn't know where you were
going. People
I wasn't sure where that was going, David.
What?
I was worried about that one.
I don't know about burritos. What do you think, Peter Bukowski, of the latest Jerry Jones saga here?
I will tell you that I have once used the drop of Jerry Jones saying, I remember the glory hole days, bring me back my glory hole. On Locked On Packers, I have used that drop before. It is one of the best quotes from an owner ever in the history of the world. Landon is absolutely right about this is just who Jerry Jones is and has always been. But like, does anyone expect anything different? Like this is just how this works. And so if we're trying to tie this to anything meaningful with the Cowboys, how can you possibly do that? He's just going to go out and bark in front of the carnival because that's what he does. Like he's Hugh Jackman from The Greatest Showman. Like he is managing the freaks, even though they're not. He kind of views them that way, maybe.
And let's be clear, we're all in his circus. It's not just the Cowboys. Guess
we're
what, guys?
Right.
The NFL,
I never bought a ticket. Nope, don't count me in that. Not at all.
Well, Gino, you got a ticket to a different clown show, buddy. His name is Nick Sirianni, and literally,
I don't claim this guy.
Damian Woody of ESPN saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, but this dude is a straight. Actually, I'm not paraphrasing. I'm quoting. This dude is a straight clown, bro. Which end quote. That comes from my vernacular. 100%, and it was already brought up here, but James Palmer also tweeting of the shaved head, which my shaved head is actually a sign of consistency. Aaron Freeman and Ross Jackson shaved heads are signs of necessity. Nick Sirianni's shaved head is a sign of lunacy. James Palmer saying Nick Sirianni shaving his head is giving me vibes of Billy Walsh panicking before the screening of Queens Boulevard at Sundance. Honestly, guys, I feel like Nick Sirianni's antics are kind of also a la Jerry Jones, somewhat expected. But Nick Sirianni does not have the clout in the National Football League.
But the thing
Jerry Jones
is,
big Britney Spears energy from Nick Sirianni.
Jerry knows what he's doing. Nick Sirianni is not smart enough to understand what he is actually doing right now. That's what Lou and I have come to the realization, that he is not good enough to get us in this circle like Jerry is. He's got that Vince McMahon vibe, Jerry, right? Where like even if you're booing, if you're cheering, you're paying attention. Nick Sirianni is in his own carnival, thinks he's the guy selling the tickets, is putting on the show, And all the time, everybody on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb has given him 0.00 on every performance in 2024. That's exactly what he is. I said on our show, I've seen this guy in 100 bars in Western New York trying to sell me on something, and this is the goofiest guy I would ever talk to after I walked out of the bar. Like, I know this guy. He's me. He's me. I should not be running an NFL team. That's why I'm here on my team.
Allow me to attest to that. I actually thought it was
Gino, you might be better than Nick Sirianni, honestly.
I'm not.
I would trust him on 3rd and 1 more than Nick Sirianni. And I thought it was a good sign that the team wanted him to be more energetic this week. That, to me, is not what I want in a head coach, but it seems like they're still fighting for this guy, and they want him to be who he is. But it's kind of like when you have a little kid and you want to, go tell him to do something funny, like, hey, go give this to your sister, or go do this, and instead of doing that, they break it, or they hit the sibling or something. Like, no, that's not what I meant. When we said be energetic, we didn't say flex on your own fans when you beat Deshaun Watson by 4 points.
About running the ball, which they ran for 47 yards. What is he flexing on? What is he doing?
No, that's not what we meant. So it's just, it was. What a day. I mean, the worst win I've ever felt.
Reality TV in the NFC East is the best. MTV or VH1 should have got the rights.
Well, for Dallas, though, they need a VHS converter because that was the last time they were relevant in this sphere. So
the best thing that's going to come out of all this is the It's Always Sunny episode where the gang kidnaps Sirianni.
Yes, we need it. We need it like I need air.
And then Mac admits that he only did it because Jerry Jones told him to.
Nick Sirianni was cute. That's why. And then everybody like, Nick, do you see this guy has a shaved head, Mac? What are you talking about?
I want to know where Big Dom is in all this. Shouldn't he be protecting Nick Sirianni from the fans?
Dom's the one shaving the head. Are you crazy? He's got like
Dom
the
can't
Bowie
even get this
knife.
guy under control. He's off
guy.
his rocker, man. He's gone.
We need a locked if NFL cartoon to dialogue to describe all of these things that are happening around the NFC. And we haven't even gotten to the games yet. So speaking of the games that are coming, we're going to figure out who is on upset alert. A big matchup in the NFC North between the Minnesota Vikings and Detroit Lions. We'll talk about all of that and more coming up next on today's episode of NFC Squad. And we're doing that thanks to our buddies, our good friends over at FanDuel, part of our squad, NFL fans. You make them part of your squad this season. Get big returns from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, when you're watching the New Orleans Saints drop 27 points on the Buccaneers in the second quarter, but you're like, you know what? This isn't the same old Saints and Bucks. The Bucks are going to pull this thing out. You can go to FanDuel. You can check out the latest stats, the play-by-play, all the information you need. And then if you want to make an in-game bet, you can make that with confidence thanks to America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, because they're giving you all that information. And this week, the big division matchup to watch across the NFC, the Detroit Lions facing the Minnesota Vikings. They're going to have to do it without Aiden Hutchinson, but the Minnesota Vikings are still only favored to win by 2.5 points. Can the Detroit Lions overcome that spread and get a big NFC North win? If you think they can, or if you think they can't, go ahead, make your bet. And if it's your first $5 bet, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, no matter what happens with that wager. So again, take advantage of that great opportunity with FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Wrapping up today's episode of NFC Squads. And like I said, we are going to get to that big battle in the NFC North. But I actually want to kick things over to James Jarko real quick. I feel like we need to. The Buccaneers, the lien holders on the link after shutting down the old Eagles home and opening the current Eagles home. So I'm going to let you kick this off, James. This week, the Buccaneers are underdogs, 3.5-point underdogs against the Baltimore Ravens. I got to watch the Baltimore Ravens this last weekend, James. I'm going to tell you right now, they look pretty good. They look like they pretty much know what they're trying to do. Defense is still a little suspect, though. Do you think the Buccaneers can get that overcome that spread and get a win at home this week on Monday night?
I think they're fully capable. I think they showed that, they're capable of going toe-to-toe with anyone in the NFL, at least offensively. The question is, what defense is going to show up? Usually when the Bucs would face Derrick Henry, it was like, oh, well, who cares? The Bucs have one of the best run defenses in the NFL, but this is not Will Levis or Ryan Tannehill who's playing quarterback with Derrick Henry being, the entire offense, and the Bucs run defense has not been great. So this is going to be a really interesting matchup. Lamar has gotten the better of the Bucs numerous times, but at the same time, emotion is going to play into this. And this is the Bucs return home after Hurricane Milton hits and playing in front of those fans. I think they already said last week against the Saints, they were playing for something bigger. They were playing for something more than themselves. It was more than just a game. Now you get to go in front of those fans. And I think it's really going to help elevate their game. I don't know if it'll be enough to get a win, but I don't think anyone should be surprised if the Bucs end up winning on Monday night.
Can I?
Yeah.
I hate
go for it.
to like derail this, but it just made me think, and I know the stakes are not the same. I know the impact is not the same, but it made me think of that first game at the Superdome after Hurricane Katrina, and I'll never ever forget Mike Tirico on the call, that game, and how it so clearly impacted those guys. I know it's not the same, and I don't want to draw a false equivalency, but we are talking about serious impact to a lot of people, and we know these kinds of things impact the game. Like, Ross, what do you remember about that game? Like, I assume everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say every dang detail of it. I used to actually have a poster that had like the line draw, like the dot play or the dot sketch of the rebirth play, which was that block punt, the recovery in the end zone, all those other things. The thing that I remember so much about that too, Peter, was actually Mike Tirico's call. It's funny that you should mention that, because he didn't say touchdown, New Orleans Saints. He said touchdown, New Orleans. And then he literally put his hands out in the booth and told everybody to stay quiet. And then the next thing, the only thing you hear for the next, minute and a half, Aaron, maybe a little bit longer, is the cheers of the fans in the Superdome and everything. And that was like, that's still to this day, like one of those moments that I remember as like a top moment in sports broadcast history, on top of how important it was. But yeah, I mean, look, there's a statue in front of the Superdome 5 minutes away from my house. That is Steve Gleason blocking that punt. It's one of the most important things to this city.
Yeah, like you guys said, I mean, it's one of those moments that transcends the game, right? It's part of the game. It's forever woven into the fabric of the game, but it certainly transcends the game indeed. So great moments there. And this is going to be the Buccaneers' first home game. We're returning, and we'll see what all that brings with it. Unfortunately, Lamar Jackson definitely looking to ruin that homecoming. Aaron Freeman, haven't heard from you in a little bit, so we're going to kick this over to you. NFC North division battle, big one. Detroit Lions visiting the Minnesota Vikings. Again, Vikings are favored by 2.5 points. No Aiden Hutchinson. Do you think the Lions, how big of an impact is that to you in this game?
I think it's huge. Aiden Hutchinson is basically the Lions pass rush. And without him, I don't know if that defense is nearly as good. They've made upgrades in the secondary and whatnot. But without having a pass rush going up against a Vikings offense that is, firing on most cylinders, you just got to kind of squint on some of the Sam Darnold stuff, but for the most part, like they're firing on most of their cylinders. I think it's going to be a challenge for them. And Brian Flores is cooking up some things in the lab to try to throw a wrench into that Lions offense. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, but I think this is going to be a big test for the Lions, because I think the assumption that a lot of people have is now it's going to just kind of ride on their offense, because I don't know their defense is going to be nearly as good as it is capable of being without Aiden Hutchinson. And is this offense, and the offense is cooking. Ben Johnson is doing things. He's throwing out, a Statue of Liberty plays and all the type of things, hook and ladder, all this type of stuff to get that offense rolling and whatnot.
That was just for us.
It was a birthday gift for Jerry.
Yeah. I have an interesting thing on this matchup, this Vikings and Lions matchup. According to the Next Gen Stats, teams that are undefeated 5-0 or better, playing at home, coming off of a bye week, so that's exactly where Minnesota is right now, are 9-0 all time in those situations. This would be the first time that a team in Minnesota's situation lost, if they did lose, coming off of a bye week, and the average margin of victory is about 19.8 points. So not only have they been wins, but they've been big wins in this situation.
So we think Sam Darnold is going to blow the doors off of Jared Goff in that offense. History repeats itself.
I mean, fortunately for Sam Darnold, he's not facing Jared Goff in the Lions offense, right? He's got to face the Lions defense. And again, without Aiden Hutchinson and
that's how
somewhat
works,
suspect
right?
behind them anyway. Peter Bukowski.
Who's the trade guy? Who's the trade guy for Detroit? Who's the like, because it's not, we put Max Crosby to bed. They're not trading him. Like, who's the guy that they need to go get?
Hassan Reddick.
That's a great question.
Yeah,
Hassan.
Reddick,
I mean,
give the Eagles a 2. Which,
Reddick,
by the way,
Reddick's
that's a
even similar
ridiculous
kind of player, sort of.
But the crazy thing is we got this reporting from Josina Anderson yesterday that there's this trade kicker as part of the deal, that Howie got somehow, that if they trade Hassan Reddick to an NFC team, there's extra draft capital that goes into this. Like they're going to do whatever they can to not trade him to an NFC team. So if you're the Lions, are you giving up a 1 to offset that compensation? Like I feel like that's what you have to do. And that's crazy.
Is there a way to do a 3-way trade here that bypasses the
a 3-way, Landon? Easy, buddy.
Listen, we're already going
My goodness.
Glory holes and 3-ways on the show today.
Man.
We're gonna get taken off the air.
I was ready to talk about Zadarius Smith as a trade target, but I can't say that after that.
Also, Zadarius Smith and Dan Campbell would like get in a physical altercation. Like I can't see that.
That's what Wisconsin did too, and it already worked out for them apparently. God,
Peter, do you see a way for the Lions? I mean, this is again, it's a tight spread anyway, but do you see, and given that stat that Ross just dropped on us, you're the NFC North representative here tonight. Do you see a way the Lions come out with a win in Minnesota?
The only way I can see it, honestly, and I would love to see it, by the way, is if Ben Johnson just has an all-time plan for Brian Flores. Because the one thing we know, Jared Goff, it's not that you can blitz him, because he will do some things against the blitz. Ben Johnson does a really good job of giving him answers against pressure looks, but against pressure, he has a problem. And so I wouldn't be surprised. Like Brian Flores loves to show like heavy blitz, zero pressure regularly, but he only does it like 4 times a game. But this might be the game where he does it like 8 times a game, 10 times a game, 12 times in this game. And then it's like, okay, what are the answers that you have? And generally speaking, the guys that handle zero pressure well are the guys that can move, because you have to be able to get off your spot and create something a little bit off platform. And Jared Goff just can't do that. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not optimistic for the Lions, honestly. And that defense, they're going to have to blitz the daylights out of Sam Darnold. The only other path I can see is like, if this is one of those games where Aaron Glenn is like, this is my head coach resume reel. And here's every designer blitz I can think of. Sam Darnold throws 2 interceptions, and one of them you return for a touchdown and you win some like 17-14 kind of game. I think that's crazy. Like Sam Darnold looked like he was turning back into a pumpkin last week. What was the Aaron didn't? Oh no, there was the Kirktober. There's a Sam Darnold thing in October too. He's terrible in October, but great in September. It's one of those weird things. So
very interesting. We'll see what happens. Again, big opportunity for the Detroit Lions to draw even in record, but also take the lead in the NFC North. The Minnesota Vikings obviously looking to go to 6-0. The Washington Commanders, Minnesota Vikings, Atlanta Falcons, San Francisco 49ers, all leading NFC divisions as we enter this weekend. All 4 of those teams are in action. So these divisions could look a little bit different depending on how that schedule goes. Lord, help me at Locked On Commanders if the Carolina Panthers come into Northwest Stadium and beat Jane Daniels and the Commanders. Hopefully we'll have to talk about that, but we hope to talk to all of you again this time next week. Thank you for joining the NFC Squad. We will be here each week, each of us here every day to bring you the latest on all your favorite NFL teams. So make sure you're following all of these shows on the Locked On Podcast Network and subscribe so you don't miss a moment of the amazing coverage, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.